afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Superhero Politics. We have a very special guest with us today. As always, I don't try to take over that. I turn it over to our guests and let them introduce themselves and tell you guys about who they are and their interests. And we're going to get into the questions here in a minute. So I will introduce our guest. We met on TikTok. Her channel, please forgive me for butchering this, Dr. Kaori.
Yeah, Kaori.
Kaori, yeah, okay. Is a wealth of knowledge on all things obscure superhero information, and then also anime. And so check her out. All of her contact information will be in the show notes when we post this episode. But Christina, I'm going to turn it over to you and tell them a little bit about yourself and your history in comic books and anime.
Hi, I'm Kaori. I literally just came up with that name because my favorite villain from Sailor Moon is Kaori Knight, from the Sailor Saturn thing that was going on when she was the bringer of death and destruction. So I started reading comic books when I was like really little, like third grade-ish, which is actually the same time that my dad started reading comic books. And my dad's been collecting comic books since the 60s. And I've read pretty much all of them. We've got about 6,000 comic books in our garage. Wow. And the only reason I know that is because I used to organize them all, and I would catalog everything to go in which boxes, what series was it, how many is in that series, and I would just like tally them up and be like, oh, we have like 6,000 comic books now. And my dad's like, why?
So what region of the country are you in?
I'm currently in Nevada. I live in Vegas. I was born in Los Angeles, raised in Tennessee, and then we moved to Las Vegas a couple of years ago.
Cool. So obviously, the West Coast has a very rich history of comics, and I think with movie production and a lot of things that's happening out there. San Diego Comic-Con is one of the biggest ones of the cons. Have you and your family ever gotten into the cons or participated in the cons? I know you're a huge cosplayer. You have some incredible cosplay on your site, and so have you guys ever gotten into the cons, and what was that experience like for you?
I've never been to like a big one. I will be going to like my first big one this year, so it'll be Dragon Con in Atlanta. I'm going to that one. It'll be my first time going to like a big one. I've been wanting to go to San Diego Comic Con. I actually had tickets to go to San Diego Comic Con, and we lost my grandmother. And we were planning the funeral, and I told them, as long as the funeral is before this date or after this date, we're good. And they put it on that date, and I was like, now why would you do that? So I had to cancel my tickets, and only for them to move the date to 2 months prior. And they were like, well, you were going to the thing. And I was like, well, I sold the tickets. They got the tickets back now. So, but I'm doing that. My first con was in Chattanooga. It was kind of small. It's like Chattanooga. It was kind of small because Chattanooga is really not that big. It was fun though. It was a really fun experience. One of my friends who's a really big cosplayer came down there. And it was fun to be around and see people who I've never thought cosplayed before cosplay. We got to sit in on some panels. There was a Disney panel we sat in on. That was really cool. We watched some people do some video games. But overall, like the experience at the con was really cool. I did have kind of like a slight issue before when I did Typhoid Mary from Marvel. And it was just like, well, isn't she white? And I was like, she is, but not today. So I've gone through like a lot of with my friends who are really great Black cosplayers, and we get the same thing. That character isn't Black, and I'm like, well, you know what? They are today. They are today.
Yeah, and so that's one of the things that we always want to address is like there's and you do a fantastic job, folks. If you guys follow Kaori on TikTok, you will see that she does an amazing job of finding and cataloging heroes of color, like heroes and villains of color. Like I every time, like it's so many that comes out. I like them because it reminds me of representation and stuff that we don't really speak of because it's not so prominent. And so when you do race bend a character, you get that pushback simply because black characters or characters of color haven't been that prevalent in comics or
Mm-hmm.
in really less so in anime. So,
Mm-hmm.
when you guys go out, is it a lot of pushback, or do you guys just hear people kind of under their breath challenging you guys on the fact that you race bent a character?
A lot of the times it's kind of in the background because some people will be like, "Oh my God, I recognize that character. You did a really good job," and then like somebody else in that group be like, I thought that character was a different race," and they'll either tell them, "Well, you can do whatever you want to, like as long as you're not like black facing a character." I think that's where some people get confused because like there are women who love Storm who are not black and they feel like because they're not black they can't cosplay. Of course you can. As long as you have the hair, the eyes, the outfit, we know who you are. It's really not that big a deal. But like, if you decide that you're going to paint your face brown for some reason, you don't have to do that. Just like you don't have to like shape your eyes to be a Japanese character that you saw in an anime. Like you don't have to do any of that. And so it's always like it's not really upfront until you get online, but like when they're in your face, they don't want the physical consequences of what they say. So they'll be like, "Oh my God, I love that. That's really cool." And then they'll get back later on some anonymous page, be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe she did that. That character's not black." So it kind of depends on like how bold they want to be.
Because we were just at GalaxyCon in Raleigh here in North Carolina, and I saw several different iterations of Starfire. Now we've got the
Mhm.
Anna Diop Starfire from Titans, and people went nuts about that. But I saw white Starfires, and I saw black Starfires, and I saw folks who literally did the orange, Teen
Mhm.
Titans body paint Starfire, and so it's really there are really no rules as long as I don't think you're disrespectful to the
With
character.
it, right?
And so I
Mm-hmm.
think sometimes, if there's a black character that white people want to portray, they feel like they have to do the physical embodiment of it and not the spirit of the character. And I
Right.
think this is where we get into these consequences and we get into these conflicts is because you don't feel like you can represent the character without the color,
Making yours, yeah,
and
right.
and it's really
So,
the spirit of the character that we all should be coming together around. So when you and your friends get together and you guys cosplay, like um how much of the inspiration of the original character do you take and how much dramatic license, being that the character is not originally of color, how much creative license do you take with it, from that when you decide?
I sometimes think like it's like a even split. Like, so my sister wants to do Jessica Rabbit, and um, but the only thing that she's really going to do is the hair, the makeup, the dress, the gloves, because there's not too much else that you can do with that character. So I guess it just depends on which character it is because you can do like a 50-50 split, like the exact spirit of the character and then your own little spin. So like when I do a character from like a video game, Ari, for example, from League of Legends. I love her, but I always choose a skin of hers because she has so many different skins. I always choose a skin of hers to do because then I can get a little bit more creative with it. So like how Storm has a million and one different outfits because she is absolutely a fashion icon. I chose for her a outfit that she had. It's an all pink outfit with white purse that she went to the mall in. I chose that because then I can get creative with the things in my closet. So it just depends on like what you kind of want to do, but it can always be 50-50, or you can do, you're going to take the idea of, oh, she wore this outfit in this universe one time. And then that's the only thing that you take is the outfit. And then you just, the rest of it is just like your own complete spin. So it's like a 90-10 split type thing. When we pick ours, like we want to do the Powerpuff Girls as a group cosplay, but we found like the colors and we know their personalities. So like which girl goes to which personality, and then we know the colors, and then the outfit is just us, like whatever outfit we put together, however we choose to do our hair, afro or gown. But it's just like kind of, you know, you have to just kind of decide if you want to be the exact character or if you want to have the inspiration of the character and be yourself with whatever you put together.
Yeah, I remember a couple years back in cosplay, there was a big kind of steampunk um
Mm-hmm.
theme running, like everybody was doing versions of character in steampunk, and
And
it was,
steampunk, yeah.
yeah, and it never really resonated with me, but I get it. And then you know you had the Batman by Gaslight come out, and it was really set in that Victorian area around the steampunk, and so there was kind of a push of that. But why is it so important for young women of color and Black women in particular to really assert themselves in the world of fantasy and animation and anime? Why is it really important? Because I know we have these battles around representation, and we have these battles around you know what we're trying to portray in terms of um, the fandom and accuracy, and people are really on comic book accuracy, which is really just a code word for keeping it white.
Mm-hmm.
Um, why is it so important that you guys take a stand, that women take a stand and be represented in all facets of fandom? And I mean, I'm not just talking about in color, but also in you know, height, in shape, in body representation, because you know, comic books always paint a very unrealistic view of the female body. And so why is it really important for young women of all shapes and sizes and colors to be represented in the fandom today?
It's just because we, like growing up, we didn't have it. So my very first anime was Akira, and then after that it was Princess Mononoke. So Princess Mononoke, that's my girl. However, there are exactly zero people of color in that movie. Um, but I love that movie. And when we get into like black characters who were represented in Dragon Ball Z with the big lips and the dark skin, and they changed Mr. Popo from being black to blue at some point in time, but he was like
Yeah.
midnight dark with these super
Yes.
pink lips.
Yeah.
But then you get into characters from Naruto, where the only issue with any black character that I had in Naruto wasn't even how they looked, it was how he was talking. Killer
Mhm.
B was talking in like
Right.
rap lyrics almost. And I'm like, ew.
Yeah.
But because like we get people from, I think she's from Hunter x Hunter, Canary,
Mhm.
where she is just absolutely amazing. And then the new Castlevania coming out, where we have
Yeah.
Black and Indigenous vampires, and that fight
Yeah.
between the voodoo girl, I think her name's gonna be Annette, and the Black vampire, and they have that fight going on. I'm like, and
Yeah.
it's important because what we were watching when we were younger was not us. Like we could connect with them on a personality level, but on a looking level, we can't. And so I think it's just really important that we get that push, and everybody's so excited for these characters that are coming in, like Generation V for the boys, where we've
Yeah.
got some black characters coming through with some powers, and it's just like an invincible bulletproof is about to come
Yeah.
in, the rag is
Yeah.
about to come in, and I'm just like, I'm here for it, all of it. I'm so ready.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is that, and I'm glad you said Mr. Popo, because honestly, I grew up, and you know I'm much older than you, and I grew up in watching the 1932 Max Fleischer Superman cartoons, where like the Japanese people were like the Asian people were drawn with the very slant eyes and the big teeth, and black people had the big pronounced white lips and the very dark skin with the small plaits and the and
Mm-hmm.
things, and I remember that. And even with things like Looney Tunes, when they would shoot them and blow them up, they would resemble the little Niglets, the little Niglet cart, babies that they used to make in the South during slavery. And it was always this, such a negative representation of what black people look like. And so now as we progress, with the art, we should see a more physically accurate view of what we look like. I was
Mm-hmm.
just watching My Adventures with Superman, and Perry White is black, and they've and Jimmy Olsen is brown, is now a brown kid. But if you look at the hands, the way the hands are drawn, like it still has that homage to the old, you know, anime style, the way they drew black people with the
Mm-hmm.
very, pronounced shades of things like lips and hands and stuff like that. And so we haven't gotten there, but I could say we're definitely moving in the right direction. But it's going to take pushes from creators like yourself to be able to inspire the artists and the writers in the room, and then hopefully, creators like yourself and myself, we get in the rooms to be able to influence that. And so, what do you see in terms of the direction of the industry from reaching out to creators like yourself who have this, who are able to influence what people see in terms of the representation of the characters? Have you been reached out to by anyone and said, "Hey, you've got a fairly large following on across social media. Is there, an opportunity for you to get in to maybe influence that? Is that something you want to do one day?"
I do. Actually, one time when I was doing Trinary, Marvel's official page had liked the video, shared the video, and they kind of just like kept it because Trinary is kind of like one of their new, and I think she's from Iraq, I want to say. But I haven't been reached out to personally, but I do have other creator friends whose platform is a bit bigger than mine, who have been reached out to, and they've kind of given their ideas, and we are kind of seeing it. We're kind of seeing the try. Some people are trying a little bit too hard, like when they did the What If for Miles Morales, and he was Thor, and it was so bad. But then they did the one when he was Wolverine. When they did What If He Was Wolverine, Wolverine was great. The Thor one was not great. I don't know why they did that, but
I
we've
just
seen the
talked
try.
about this. I just talked about this on my panel at GalaxyCon. I literally just talked about the fact that if I ever see like, there were no black people in the room when this was discussed. There couldn't have been anybody in the room because it never would have made it to the light of day if there was any black people in the room that said, "You guys can't put this out." Like, it was really that was one of the worst, most disrespectful almost what ifs that I've ever seen. Like, I love Miles Morales and I love Thor, both of those characters. But the idea that you would just take Miles Morales and reduce him to some, you know, really bad hip hop slang.
It was
Uh
the speaking in the rap lyrics, and it wasn't
yes.
even just him. When they did the one who was playing Sif, and she came in and she
Yeah.
was like, "Hot wings coming in hot," and I was like, "What?"
What?
And then his Mjolnir was graffitied, and his
Yes.
bridge was graffitied, and then when he was by Odin's Fade, and I was like, he doesn't even have hair, so why are we doing that
Right.
part?
It was honestly,
And it was bad.
it was disrespectful. Like, and I don't think that there's any other word I can really use to describe it. It was like a black exploitation film from the 70s. It was like
Mm-hmm.
so disrespectful. But you know, I think this is where we have to make sure that we're not just accepting representation for
Just because
representation's
it's
sake,
there. Mm-hmm.
because just because there's a black or a brown face as a prominent character doesn't mean it's always good, and it doesn't mean that it's progressing, or it doesn't mean that it's moving the ball forward. It could be setting us back.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was
So
almost kind of how I felt when they did do Starfire and Titans. Like here's our token Black character,
yeah,
and then she like had hooker clothes on, and I was like,
yeah,
okay. And then they tried to erase that by making her a bit bigger. But then they brought in her sister, and her sister was like, it felt like a setback to me. And I'm like, so are we going to go forward or are we going to go back? What is happening? And then when they did Naomi, nobody watched Naomi. As powerful and as great as Naomi's story is, nobody watched Naomi because the first 5 minutes of the first episode, I thought I was gonna be sick. I was like, this is absolute garbage, and I don't understand. And then Vixen should have had her own show or movie
should
by
have.
now. They gave her a cartoon on the
Yeah,
CW that came on at 3 o'clock in the morning, and if you didn't catch it
yep,
at 3 a.m., you wasn't gonna watch it. And I was like, y'all
yeah,
are treating them so bad. And it's like there are so many really good characters, which is why I do the comic book characters. I was like, everybody that I've ever talked to, I'm like, who's your favorite Black character? And it's always the same ones. It's Blade, Green
yep,
Lantern, Storm, Black Panther, Luke Cage. And then I'm like, well, there are this list of people. And they're like, I've never heard of them. I know.
yeah,
I
yeah.
know. And
And
DC does
this is
that
what
thing where they do that all the time. They
and this is
introduce a really good one and then they just go away.
and this is why I really so much love your page, because I think the first time I really discovered your page, and what caused me to follow you was you introduced Trevor Barnes. You were talking about interracial relationships in comics, and you brought up Wonder Woman's black boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that those series of comics, and it just clicked. I was like, oh my god, Trevor Barnes. I remember, like, because he was from Charlotte, like he was from North Carolina, and I remember that. That's what kind of reminded me. And I was just like, there's so much history where we had, this blip of representation, and it just got wiped away. Batman has had interracial relationships, and Barry Allen has had interracial relationships. There's been so many times where
Arrow
you've
too.
had these relationships that just didn't work out. And I mean, obviously they, with the CW Flash with Iris Allen being black now, and so it's been there, but it hasn't been sustained. And so, like, this is why your channel and folks that do what you do on social media is so important to the fandom, is because it's the education. So we don't feel like we have to necessarily argue to race bend the character. There is a rich history of our character representation in comic books. Now, hopefully going forward we see it in anime, like,
Mm-hmm.
with Castlevania coming up. I remember Afro Samurai, like all those, but I would love to see more in anime. Like, is that something that you want? Because the anime folks came hard at the cons. Like, they come hard at the cons, even more so than superhero cosplayers. Is that what you're hoping for in the next few years, that we see more of what, say, Castlevania is doing in the anime world?
I do. And I think because I think a lot of people also missed out on Yasuke, mainly because I mean the story wasn't center focused around him like I think people wanted it to be. But if they were to get a new season, the director was like, I have a Yasuke focused one here. So something like Yasuke, definitely something like what Castlevania is about to do. Cannon Busters was not bad to me. I absolutely loved that. So like people were like, I hate that show. I was like, how? And even when we had some Hispanic representation with Seis Manos and Trece, just like the representation was there, but it's like it wasn't a Japanese solo studio who did it. It was somebody here who teamed up with a Japanese studio. So I would absolutely love for just like straight Japanese anime to give us characters, like especially the way that they did Hunter x Hunter with Canary, and when they did the characters from Naruto. I loved them. They looked normal. It was just that one who it was Killer B who his talking was driving me insane, but his design was amazing. And then of course he was badass.
It
So
was
it was
beautiful.
like I want that, and hopefully when people see how we get this Black and Indigenous vampires in Castlevania, that it'll push more forward and we get like the more representation. There are some like webtoons and manga who do have really good designs for Black characters, so hopefully they come forward with those things.
Certainly. So what are you reading now? So what if you had your if you want to share with the folks your playlist, like what are you reading, what are you watching now? Because you're always on point with either the historical aspect of comics and anime, or what's coming down the pipe. So what are you watching right now? What are you reading?
Right now I'm getting ready for Ahsoka because Ahsoka is about to come out.
Yeah, yeah.
But I did find some new anime. Zom 100, of course, that one's really good, relatable because, of course, I would love for the zombie apocalypse to keep me from going from work. Um, High Card is one that I think is so underrated and it's not talked about at all. Um, it has two people of color in there for sure. I don't know what I don't know what they are, but they're definitely of color and really really interesting to look at. High Card is a really really good anime. And then as far as reading, the JLA versus Godzilla and King Kong is about to come out, so I'm waiting for that. And of course, this whole wedding ceremony between Emma Frost and Tony Stark going into the Fall of X, and then like just kind of the relationship, friendship that's forming between Wanda and Storm. Is getting my is like it needs more attention because I think people forget that she does have magical prowess, and now that Wanda's mother died and became the mother of all witchcraft, anybody who is connected to Wanda is now connected straight into like all of the most powerful magic. So
Yeah.
I'm like, now that she can imbue her lightning with magic, we have a problem here.
He is definitely a problem. And the crazy thing is I think people understand how powerful Storm is, but nobody knows how powerful Storm is. Because if
Mm-hmm.
you look at her mutant ability and the Omega level mutant ability, people forget about the fact that she is literally a godhead, like has the goddess head and magic. And I think people don't understand that. And now and I agree with you, I would love to see that the relationship fleshed out. And I'm always I'm always the one that I love to see characters, especially main characters, get a boost. Like I love that. Like I don't believe in nerfing characters. I believe if that character is supposed to be powerful, that character is supposed to be powerful. And like I want to see it. And so Storm getting this and increasing her magical ability, I'm here. I'm definitely here for it. So those are some great suggestions. Where are you going to be next, and where can people find you? Just give yourself a plug, and then we'll wrap up for today.
Um, well, like I said, at the end of the month, I will be in Atlanta for Dragon Con. And then I will be in LA in December for LA Comic Con. But I am, of course, always on TikTok, Kaori. It should still be that. And then my Nerd on the Street has a podcast that we started. We are about to be on episode 3, and our 4-year anniversary is actually the first day of DragonCon on the 31st of this month. So we finally got the podcast kicked off, and it's on Apple Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Samsung Podcasts, all that stuff. And then we have our YouTube channel. Now we go live on TikTok, and then I have like the replay on our YouTube channel, which is Nerd on the Street still. So yeah.
Great. Well, folks, all of that will be in the show notes. You'll be able to find links to Christina and all the great stuff that she's doing. Follow her, like her channel, blow it up, guys. If you want to be educated on anime and comics, there's definitely one to follow. And so we appreciate you being here today. I know you're on the West Coast, so it's a little earlier
Yeah.
than it is here on the East Coast, but great to talk to you. Just all the great stuff that you're doing. I commend you for being a great example for young women who are really pushing forward in this industry, pushing the door, kicking the doors open for representation, and doing it very well. You guys are, you guys are inspirational. I have two, teenage daughters who love anime and they love comic books, and you're a great representation of the fact that you can do this and do it at a high level and be true to yourself and the characters. And so, thank you for being with us today, and we really appreciate you being a guest on Superhero Politics podcast.
Thank you for having me. It was fun.
Absolutely. Like I said, go follow Christina, Dr. Kaori. Great follow. And folks, remember, we all have, we're all connected in this world. We're all connected in this fandom. It's room for everybody. We don't have to gatekeep. We don't have to push folks out. We can open the door and we can see some really great interpretations of this material because it's fantasy, it's imagination, it's the one place where we can all come together and express ourselves without condemnation, without pushback. Be kind to one another, continue to push forward the industry for everyone. And like I said, we always say on Superhero Politics Podcast, you don't have to be superhuman to be a superhuman. Until next time, this is your host, Michael Holmes, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks, Christina.
Thanks.
Bye.